Hi Poh, how are you?
Hi Anthony.
Thanks so much for coming in and talking to us today.
You're welcome.
As you probably know, we're sort of talking to people who've taken a bit of an interesting journey and trying to think about some of the things that they've done along the way and some of the ways they've made decisions in terms of where they've got to today. What would be really great is to probably hear from you from the start, just a little bit about your journey and your background and kind of what's brought you to the place you're at now, even if you know where that place is.
Yeah.
But how that all arrived and kind of that journey, and when we talked, it was sort of a meandering journey, but there's a sort of couple of common themes in there, I think.
Yeah,
It'd be great to learn about that.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'll start off with my school career, I suppose, primary school career, which started in Malaysia. So I migrated when I was 9 to Australia, and I was a bit of a dunce, to be honest, and that's kind of the reason why my parents migrated to Australia, because there's very limited university entries available for non-Indigenous population, and so they thought that my best chance of getting my brother and I getting a good education was to come to Australia, and Mum's brothers were all educated here as boarders, so it just made sense to come to Adelaide. So yeah, I really struggled at school, and then when I came to Australia, I just really blossomed. Like, I loved Australia. I felt like life just kind of made sense. I don't know how, it was just a very distinct shift in the way I felt about myself and the world and how I felt I belonged in it. And I kind of felt like I was coming home in a really weird way, even though it was obviously, I was migrating to a new land. And it must have something to do with the fact that I've always been more a creative person and always knew that. I didn't learn well on an academic system. And in Australia, of course, there's a lot of emphasis on the social aspects of development that, you know, are deemed really important as well, and they are at school. So you do lots of other things besides just exams and studying and yeah, academics. And so I really loved that, and I had no trouble at school here. I always knew that I would do something creative because it's something that I always loved to do from a very young age. I loved working with my hands, and it was something that I could concentrate for hours on, even from a very young age. And I think there's something to be said about this. Steer towards things that you love to do and that you're good at. It's a really basic principle, but I'm surprised at how many people gravitate away from things like that, thinking that they can't sustain it in the form of a career, but it's not true. Because I've done two things that are pretty obscure, cooking and art. And I've been able to make a career out of both of them. And yes, lots of luck has come my way, but I am a great believer of that thing of if you always, you know, honing in on your craft, it's that thing of, what's that phrase? Preparation meets opportunity or whatever. I do hugely believe in that, and it's happened too many times in my life to not know that that is a real thing that's happened to me. So I got through primary school, then in high school, I went through actually primary school with academically with ease, because I think the standards in Malaysia are so ridiculous for kids. Like, you start having exams when you're like 7. And I remember I actually hate little A6 books, because we all used to get one even when you're like little tiny tot. And you used to have to write in all your reading for your exams, and you do everything right from the beginning. So you do geography, history, everything. Imagine trying to remember dates when you're like, you know, really meant to be just finger painting. Actually, I felt really gypped when I came to Australia. I thought, oh my God, they're just like playing in sand and stuff. We're like getting pumped with like textbooks. Anyway, so so then high school, I found that quite easy. But then something really weird happened in year 11 and 12. There just was this drastic shift in the way that like which side of my brain took over, and I was quite really good at sciences and maths, and then suddenly in year 11 and 12 it definitely, apart from art and stuff like that, which I was always interested in and good at, I suddenly just became much better at writing and anything that was sort of a humanities kind of nature, and did drama, started to just do all these things, and And when maths and the sciences kind of started to hit that advanced stage, we were starting to do calculus and advanced algebra and all that kind of stuff. I was streamed in sort of middle high school in top of all those classes, and then suddenly I just plummeted from like, when it got to that more advanced stage of maths and science, I literally just started failing my subjects. It was really interesting. And all I wanted to do was just read and draw, and that's all I kind of wanted to do. And so I excelled in those, and then I just did really badly, and I just sort of just scraped through with my matric with those. I think was like in quite a low danger of failing those subjects actually, but just managed to get through. Then I took a couple of years off and just worked in a sandwich bar and saved up and went overseas, was overseas for about 9 months. And some quite interesting shifts happened in my life personally because I came from quite a religious background. And so this huge wide world opened up to me, and came back, quit religion, pretty much. was a Mormon, so that was what my religious background was, and went to university and did a Bachelor of Visual Communications, which is essentially a Bachelor of Design, and I specialise in illustration. Kind of always knew that I just wanted to paint pretty pictures, but thought I'd better at least try to be sensible and do it in the form, in a commercial form. So did really well at uni because I was a mature age student. I was really prepared for it, and worked really hard, got good marks. But when I came out, I kind of knew I never wanted to be stuck in a building and be working for people, and I sort of dabbled in a little bit of freelance and found I was very bad at taking instruction. And I was very dogmatic about my ideas. So if a client said, "Can you just give me 6 ideas?" I was like, "No, I'm going to give you the one, and it's really good." And so I just had a lot of trouble working in the commercial realm, and because I went to university as opposed to TAFE, they don't really train you very well to function as designers, to be able to quote and know all the post and pre-production stuff. So I was pretty dysfunctional, really. So I was doing lots of things like making huge mistakes in editing and having to cover costs when I misprint. I printed things that had loads of spelling mistakes, and I just didn't know how to operate in a business. And that really turned me off the idea of doing that. So then I worked in a sushi bar for a couple of years and tried to figure out what I wanted to do. And I dabbled in a bit of makeup. So that was my next thing. I wanted to be makeup to the stars, and had these dreams to go to New York and do that. But then my partner at the time said, I think you need to kind of go back to your art, because I think with the makeup thing, you're kind of going to be like the shoelace tie on a football team for the rest of your life. No matter how much you excel at it, you're always like this anonymous thing behind designers or behind, no one ever goes, "Have you heard of this amazing, makeup artist?" It's very rare anyway. So it just seems like a real shame that, your creativity is kind of always lost and being directed by someone else. Don't you want to be, the head honcho? So it got me thinking a little bit, and so he basically encouraged me to have a look at a few galleries, and I just kind of rocked up with 3 paintings tucked under my arm and visited the 2 that I wanted to exhibit at. And one asked me if maybe I should start taking some art classes, and I was like, I just came out of art school, so I was thought maybe we're not quite the right fit. And then the second one was Hill Smith Gallery, who I've been with since. So it's been over 10 years that I've been with them. And then, shall I keep going?
Yeah, that's great.
I'm nearly finished. So then so did that, and then kind of realised that it was really hard for me to make a living out of only one gallery, because the turnover within a stable of artists within one gallery is about 18 months. So let's say you have a sellout, which would be extremely lucky, and at the beginning you're really not selling for much because you're a nobody, so you've got no history. So you have to sell your work for quite not much. And if you do really well, that has to last you for 18 months. It's not realistic. So I realised I had to basically find more galleries so that I could work harder and make myself full-time employed in painting. So I basically just saved up, begged, borrowed, stole, and went to Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane and found galleries there, and it meant that I could paint 2, 3, 4 exhibitions a year. And that's how I basically started to earn a living full-time painting. And then I was like, oh, this is good now. I think this is okay. It's getting momentum and I'm getting a bit of press and like I'm making a living out of it. And then Masterchef happened. So that was a friend just sending me a text saying, hey, I think you have a good chance at this. And Sarah went to uni with me and we used to always fantasise about opening a little patisserie. So she's like, and so we used to talk about cooking and cook a lot together. And I was like, what is this? She goes, I don't know, I just saw an ad for it, but I think you should enter. And so, yeah, so that was that journey. I just entered. I think there was like 7,000 entrants Australia-wide. And then each state, I think, got pared down to 100. And then that got pared down to 50 live auditions in each state, maybe 100. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the rest is history.
That's the way it happened. Mm. I'm going to hark back on a few things.
Yeah.
Because there's obviously, I think there's the story of how it all unfolded, but there's probably a whole lot of stuff in there in terms of, if you'd sat down at the start of that whole journey when you arrived in Australia and then said, this is how Poh as a person's going to develop, and actually built that up, it probably wouldn't have looked anything like the process.
No, there were so many moments where I really felt like I was just floating and I was just waiting for something to stick. And those moments are quite scary because you're just like, am I just going to be a hobo for the rest of my life? I don't know. And I'm just going to be working at this sushi bar for the rest of my life. And I think you do have to let those moments kind of, see what sticks. Don't always just jump at money and that stability. And I know that goes against what everything your parents and, a lot of your instinct tells you. But if you wait for those moments to happen, it can take you on a wilder, more excellent adventure. Yeah.
So it's almost like, to me, watching it from afar or sort of listening to you talk about it, it's a lot about knowing who you are in that journey.
Yes.
So in the end, you end up as the person you knew who you were all along, but you had to find out that along the way.
Yeah. I always think it's really interesting when I meet personalities that follow this very linear path when they go to uni or at high school. They pick all their subjects so that they can get into the course that they wanted, and then they study, they do really well, and then they go into that profession. Because I think sometimes if you're really tunnel vision with life, you miss out on so many other opportunities that might be your real calling. And there's that phrase that I think has been coined for a reason, blind ambition. And I think it's not encouraged enough to just use your emotional intelligence more when you make decisions on your career. Because if it is something that you love and it's something that you're good at, there's so much there already that you can work with. And for me, it's just always about never losing interest in and daring to raise the bar for yourself all the time. And I think if it's something that you don't love doing, you run out of steam really quickly, or at some point. You need to know you're going to have that stamina for the rest of your life.
And in that process, kind of mistakes can be opportunities, right?
Yes. I love mistakes. I always embrace mistakes. Whenever people go, I just got fired. And I was like, brilliant, now you can do what you really wanted to do. I always try and get them to see the other side of the coin. And I've learnt so much from my mistakes. And it's always just about, picking yourself up and just troubleshooting and knowing, you do learn so much. You learn so much about yourself, I think, with mistakes.
Do you think there's a moment in those mistakes or when things go bad that you kind of let go of all your past thinking so you do something else and you'd only make that decision once you'd made the mistake?
Yeah.
In other words, you wouldn't make it but for the mistake. So
exactly.
If you almost sat
You've lost
back
everything. It's why wouldn't I just try that now? Yeah. I think there's something about that, you've got nothing to lose. But I think people should just have that attitude more often without without the absolute tragedy happening as well.
So do you find it now, with all your commitments, how's the capacity to make mistakes now? In terms of what you do on a day-to-day basis? Is it the same as it was before, or is it different? Really?
Yeah, no, it's the same. Yeah, I feel it's really interesting. I feel very much the same person, and none of that's changed. And I have exactly the same friends. Like, my closest 4 friends are still my closest 4 friends. And I think it very much is about knowing I think the two things about success is knowing yourself really well and just working really bloody hard. I think they're the 2 secrets to success. I don't think there's actually much mystery to it. And just always, just always find...
kind of following that path, right?
Pardon?
You're sort of waiting for that thing to happen, or following the path, or if you've got those in the background, something kind of prepares itself. It was funny when I was looking at some quotes to sort of throw at you to see what you'd think of them. Louis Pasteur said, by chance you'll say, in other words, he invented pasteurised milk and stuff, but he said, but chance only favours the mind that's prepared. So in other words...
Yeah, if you can see it.
Yeah, not everyone can see those things, but you're sort of in the moment where you're thinking about, who you are and all those sorts of things, and you start to see opportunities for what they match with what you're doing. So I thought it was a really interesting quote for you. The other one that I thought of, which was interesting, because I think that you've probably changed from your daily basis being kind of one of art and creativity. It still is, obviously, and that's still flowing through, but sometimes your time's not your own now, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think I said to you on the phone, what's really interesting is I think the perception of people have of success, because I feel almost certainly that I'm less happy than I was when I was less known and I was just kind of plodding along with my art. I can really say that, because life was really simple and had this kind of purity to it. Like, I just wake up. I really had no one to answer to except my gallery owners. So I had 3 galleries at the time, so it'd just be like me talking to my galleries maybe once, twice a year, just to kind of keep them informed of what work that I was doing, and then not stick to it anyway. But now it's like very complicated, and there's like so many other things that have to be taken into consideration. Like, my book is not really my book, like the cover that I want is not the cover that the marketing department of HarperCollins want. They want the smiley Poh. I'm like, I'm sick of the smiley Poh. Why don't we have a, serious Poh on the front? It's more arresting because everyone's doing those, feel-good lifestyle shots. Why don't we have one where I'm like quite intense? I just made that up. But like little things like that, like you're just not in control of it's crazy. And I've got this friend who's lost this like multi-million-dollar business, and they've actually lost control of the IP of their name.
Really?
Yeah. So like, she had to fight. They fought back and gotten it back, but that's how out of control like success can be. It's a perception thing. It just gets very complicated, very convoluted, and the purity of the idea just gets completely shattered amongst like 1,000 people that have vested interest in you as a commodity, as a brand, almost, not as you as a creative. Yeah. And it's interesting because when I made my first book, all these things that I dreamt of doing, like I dreamt of making a cookbook my whole life, they were sort of like, my publisher was quite happy to kind of try and take those things away from me. Like, they wanted to put in a stylist. But for a commercial entity, it speeds things up, and that's all it's about. It's all about speed and efficiency and getting the product out at the right time. And it's like, time? What's time? Just do it when I'm ready. It just doesn't work like that.
There's release dates, there's shops, there's...
Yeah, I always like joke to people about how like my life was before Masterchef, and like, I just roll out of bed at the crack of noon after painting till like 5 a.m. the night before, and just like, I don't know, if I just became obsessed with potting plants that day, that's literally what I do the whole day, and then, play with my dog, take him to the park, and then I'd go, oh, should probably start work. Start work at 5 o'clock, like it was just so much freedom in my life. And now it's just not like that at all. It's just like, literally I have things where like, when I was doing my book tour the first time, it was just like quite shocking to me. Like my publicist would have like 2 phones going, and I'd be in the car and she'd just mash one phone against me and she'd be like, okay, that's 3AA, they want to talk to you about your book. Okay, blah, 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 answer 100 questions. And then she goes, okay, wind up. Okay, thank you. And then she's like, this is such a radio, and then you'd have to talk, wind up. And then while I'm on the phone, she'd like push me out the door literally. She'd come around the other side, link her arm through mine, and then she'd like walk me through a shopping centre. I wouldn't even know what state I was half the time. Walk me through this maze in a shopping centre, and I'd see the queue outside for the book signing, and then I'd sit down, meet and greet like 200 people. And you have to get really energised through the whole thing, because people, when they meet you, they get really shy. So you have to be like, cartoon character for like, for the whole day. And then night time, they'd have like dinner functions, and you'd do the same thing again. So that for like, a few weeks. So it's just like and then the whole time as well, I'm getting emails going, I wanted that yesterday. Where's that recipe? We need it for the food festival. We need to buy ingredients. So yeah, it's really, really stressful all the time. And I just really, really miss that. That really cruisy bohemian lifestyle I used to have. Yeah. So it's really, really different.
It's almost like something you wish for, you get there and you wonder...
Yes, be careful what you wish for. I always say that to people.
It's a different business or a different thing that you think about, right?
Yeah.
When you're there, it's different. It's the publicity, it's all these other things.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily
the
creative process, the cooking part of
is
the
such a small part of it. That's the thing that's quite freakish about the whole experience. And I don't say this without absolute gratitude, of course, because I feel like it's kicked so many doors open that in time I'll be able to sift all the things, and I'm starting to do it now, that I don't want, and give them back to where they came from and keep what I do want out of it. And then the doors that have been kicked open I can use as leverage for my creative projects that I've had as lifelong dreams. So you just sometimes have to suffer at little points in your life to get to where you want to go.
It's almost like we try and teach our spin-off companies and people taking those chances to create these platforms and not processes. So again, get somewhere to then do something else. And then you can then use that as an asset or use that as a thing to do something else that you really want to do or that you're really interested in. Tell me about your art. You're not necessarily precious about your art in terms of, you're precious in terms of the creative content, but you're not really precious about the art world necessarily.
No.
And I think something really interesting that you told me before is that the promotion of your brand or your name hasn't necessarily resulted in increased sales of your art. In fact, there was a conundrum there that you had around, is it good or is it bad? Is it,
Yeah. When I was thinking about entering Masterchef, that was the first thing that I felt was at risk, because it had taken me about exactly 5 years. Funny how they always say like 5-year plan, because I didn't really have a plan, but I worked really hard for 5 years, and that's when the income started to kick in. But anyway, lost my train of thought.
About your art and how the name Poh, in terms of the publicity of the Poh, didn't necessarily translate, and the difficulty of that decision making.
Yeah, so I thought, what if people see me on TV and think that I'm some crazy just trying to be famous, and use it as leverage for my art, but I'm not at all. But what if it just gets construed exactly the wrong way? And I had to think about it, and I actually suddenly realised, I know the people that buy my work, and my work is not really rock star work. I don't really make highly conceptual work that sells for hundreds and thousands of dollars. And I have a couple of corporate collectors, but I'm not really on that realm. I'm not definitely on that. I'm not in the secondary market, and I don't know if I'll ever will be, because my work can be quite corny, and I just can't run away from it. It's really weird, because a few times in my life where I got a bit angry and I thought, maybe I should make some conceptual work, and it just fell flat on its face. And it's just such a hark back to what we were talked about before. Always just really know yourself and know your market, because when you're not, people can really sense it. And so I sort of make quite works that are quite earnest. Like I don't really make work that's highly conceptual. It's really for its aesthetic beauty, and it just tells kind of quite simple stories really about me growing up with two cultures, and I'm not really having a whinge about it. It just is what it is. And so I thought, yeah, because of the type of people that attracted to my work, are usually affected emotionally by it. I knew that it wouldn't really be affected. They'd still continue to like the work, and so I felt comfortable doing that. And what was interesting though, after MasterChef and during it, all my galleries reported like a triple in the sort of number of inquiries that came in. But I knew this would happen, and it did. None of them resulted in sales. And it's that whole thing of hype, and I hate hype. And I hate things that are hip and cool, and it's because it evaporates. It's not real. It's like thin air bullshit stuff, right? And I think everyone was just calling because they saw me on MasterChef, and they're like, "Oh, she's a painter." And so many people complained. They were like, "Oh, the works are so expensive," because they thought that I'd just started painting when I was on MasterChef. I don't know what they thought, but that's how kind of simply people react to the media. It's a very shallow medium. So people kind of don't really delve into it. They just react to things, and then they click on your name, and it's not really delved into very much. So yeah, none of it really translated to sales, which is quite interesting. So like what it's done though, it has made the people that buy my work really enthusiastic about my work. So it's kind of done all the right things, which is really good.
But it's interesting how you know your market there, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know exactly who your market is,
Yeah.
to a degree, and you know what you can do and what you can deliver to that market.
Yeah. And actually, I kind of know what happens with stuff like that, and I was scared that it might happen. I thought if people do start to buy my work because I am on TV, I know what's going to happen. There's going to be a whole bunch of resales at some point because people realise I don't even like the work. They have no connection to it. They're just buying it because I'm on TV, which is a terrible reason to buy work if you don't have a personal connection with it. And I've had that happen even with auctions. You know, like I've donated work to charities, and what happens is people get carried away because they want to show off to their friends or whatever, and they buy work, and then like a few weeks later they're trying to flog it off for nothing, and because they don't really care about the work, they have no connection to it. So I was scared that that might happen if I did get those sales, but I didn't, so it was fine.
And you've often described the sort of process too, and it sounds a bit that way, between a pendulum, I think you were saying.
Yes.
Right? Between kind of success and gain, or success and effort almost.
Yeah.
And it swings between the two in terms of you put a whole lot of effort in and success comes, and then you've got to sort of work backwards.
Yeah. I think that the risks, I think the pendulum is a great analogy for risk. The bigger the swing, the bigger the risks you take, the bigger the gains, and it's something that I think is studied a lot in business. But and if you want to live this kind of quite safe, average, relatively happy life, you take little risks, and it works. It's good, like it's if that's what you want. But I think like the bigger risks, the bigger amount of excitement also can cause you equal amount of like unhappiness and complications in your life and all those kinds of things. So you invite way more variables when you take risks, I think.
Mm-hmm. And tell me about the connection just in terms of the creative process with, how does cooking fit with that? Why cooking in terms of that creative process? I think you said something around flavours, use flavours.
Oh, how they fit together. Yeah, people always ask me about the parallels with cooking and painting, and they're the two things that when I do them, I just feel so okay with myself. I really like myself when I'm painting and cooking on a really basic level. I like the way I feel in the world. I feel like the world is a really great place, and I get really massive highs from them. Like if I make, you know, a really nice bun or I render like, you know, an ear really nicely on a painting. Like I will literally just be filled with so much adrenaline, I won't be able to sleep. Like I'll just be bouncing around, dancing and with my dog or whatever. It's just, yeah, and I feel that, yeah, they're very similar processes in that ingredients and paint are very similar. Like, you know, how to construct something that's flavour-wise, a cohesive, beautiful thing that sits on a plate and has a nice composition and that people find attractive and want to eat. And it's a thing with the painting as well, you know, it's problem solving with composition and but with colour and form instead. So yeah, I find the process is really similar. It's like, you know, when I come up with a dish, sometimes I think, okay, so if I do that, I wonder how that ingredient will fit with that, and how will I make that look attractive on a plate. So it's just like, you know, conceptualising with a painting. So I'll just think, okay, I want to get that idea across about a bit of like the character, I don't know, feeling like something like feeling a bit sad, but there's like a, I don't know, a kind of a wisdom to her face or something like that. How do I get that across? So it's just like similar ways of trying to find a way to solve the problem.
Yeah, that's interesting. We had we've talked in another episode to a guy that's basically the whole path is him solving problems, and it's for the internet. In other words, everything's about solving the next problem, right? Generally.
Yeah.
And the tools of his trade were HTML script or whatever the hell they use in programming. Tools of your trade are kind of flavours and colour and probably what's in your mind's eye around what you're thinking and what solutions might be.
Yeah, that's right. And so when you taste a dish, after you've experimented, you go, I feel like something's missing, like texturally, it needs something that's really crunchy to contrast with the thing that's really silky. And with a painting, you can also tell, you're like, it's all kind of a bit homogenous. I feel like something needs to like throw the composition off to make it a little bit more dynamic. You know, it's the same kind of principles, very similar principles.
Could you use those principles to your own career, to your own life, in terms of thinking about things that you do?
Yes, because I was on a good thing. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should throw a spanner in the works. And I did with the whole Masterchef thing. But I never regret anything in my life. But the thing, I just had a thought, what's really interesting is also, I've always felt that in some ways, I haven't really had much of a choice. Like when I was in high school, because I was just so bad at certain subjects, I couldn't really pick subjects like towards a course that I wanted to do. I kind of just had to concentrate on passing matric. And then I just kind of found my way into illustration. It's been very meandering. Like I'm very bad at decision making. So I've always just kind of like felt my way through things and just really followed my instinct. So I find it interesting that it's just still got me there. So do you think bad at decision making has actually helped you? Yeah. I don't know. I can't even decide. I can't decide. Yes and no. Sometimes it has. Yeah, because I think now I kind of always like tempt fate when I can't make a decision. I'm like, something will happen, something really bad or something really good will happen. Yeah. But it's interesting. At certain stages in my life, I've been very like, say yes to everything, which is actually when Masterchef happened. I was going through this really interesting stage of my life. I just split up with my partner of 10 years, and it was kind of this, I felt like there's this real surge in me to kind of do new things and try new things and see what fell in my lap. So,
Have you had, is there a group of people, I mean, obviously in many of the companies and many of the things that we see start up, is there a group of people or a mentor that's been important to you in this journey? I mean, there's been times presumably when you're not know when you're going, or you're sort of like, am I going to do this forever? Or
I avoid mentors. I don't know what it's like with business, but I find in the world of creativity, people play their cards quite close to their chest and they bum steer you. And no one's going to make a decision better than you are. There's so many tiny little variables and nuances to your personality and, that come into play, that telling someone an issue is not really solving the problem. Just tell your mum. And sometimes it's just telling someone, it's like therapy, just telling someone your issue and voicing it, talking about it is useful. But sometimes I find mentors are a little bit naysayer-ish because they like, especially if they're older and they've gone through a different path, because like painters, it's not the same world. Anyone can be an entrepreneur now. You can start a cupcake business overnight if you want on the internet. You can do so many things. You know what I mean? Because of technology has sped time, and it has connected us. It's shrunk us globally so much. And they didn't have those opportunities when they were younger. So they had to, like, you know, just really do the hard yards. And I think there's a certain amount of resentment that comes from them thinking that you can just do things overnight and be savvy with your social media and be able to find a following just through things like that. So, like, you get a lot of, oh, yeah, no, it's very tough, yeah, I don't know if I do it that way. You get a lot of that. And then you walk away and you're like, oh, I need to have a shower now. I feel like you've just been on. You know? So yeah, I think sometimes it's good to just maintain that, I don't know, keep things to yourself sometimes, actually.
It's almost like coaching you to make your right decision rather than telling you what to do. Telling you what to do probably wouldn't work. But helping you make your own decision. Otherwise, you're telling someone and hearing yourself back.
Yeah.
That's probably the short answer.
Yeah. The number of times people hate it that I know. They're like, so why are you telling me this? Because obviously you're not going to actually take my advice. I'm like, yeah, I just need you as a wall. And you often walk away going, oh, actually, yeah, I did resolve a few things in my head while I was talking to that person. Yeah.
Look, we're just about at the end. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, all right? Just in terms of top of your head type questions. What word do you really hate?
Can't or shouldn't.
They're not words that you like.
No.
Shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that, can't do that.
No. Rules. Boring.
How would you describe your job now to a 5-year-old? Let's imagine someone walks up in the street. What do you do?
Well, I cook on TV, I paint pictures, and I write books.
That's pretty cool. At your funeral, let's imagine, we don't want to think about that, but what would you most like to hear someone say about you?
That she's really funny. That she's funny and fun to be around and encouraging, I think. Yeah.
And what really turns you off and why?
I don't like it when people don't have a. What turns me off? So many things.
It's a list.
I don't like this Gen Y thing. Sorry about the Gen Ys in here. Of thinking that there's just this sense of entitlement and of like that things happen overnight. Everything that is good in my life, like, happened with loads of hard yakka. Like, it just doesn't happen. If anything good happens to you really quickly, be really suspicious of it. Like, I've been suspicious of this whole Masterchef thing the whole time, like up till now. When people go, oh, don't you just revel in it? I'm like, nope, I don't. Every day I just look at it and go, something weird's gonna happen to me. Because I think, like a lot of, it's really interesting, like when I see these young kids go on Masterchef and they don't realise that it's just this huge machine that's just gonna chew them up and spit them out. You don't get handed anything for free. You have to drive it like a workhorse. Even if you come out and you win, you still have to drive it. Like, nothing comes for free. Like, you have to be passionate about it. You have to want to keep, making it go forward, and you have to find new ways to make it go forward. It's just nothing gets handed over to you. Nothing comes for free. It's just, it comes with all its foibles. Mm-hmm. It's that pendulum thing again, So just,
Excellent. Thanks very much. Thanks very much for joining us. And look, thanks so much for sharing that story. I mean, in terms of the whole story and all the bits and pieces, and I dug in a few bits, it's just really cool to hear the real story in terms of how the ups and downs happen and not necessarily just the spiel. So that's great. Thank you very, very much.
Cool.
Guys.
Thank you. Thanks very much.